Good afternoon, Christy. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm Brian, the chair of the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Glad to see you all.
I'm glad to see you as well. And I think that you know the drill. We're going to have 15 minutes of Q&A. So we'll have questions as advisory board members, give you the opportunity to answer them. If there's any time left over, if we only take 12 minutes, then it's open for you to ask questions or provide anything you think we haven't asked.
Sure.
And if you wouldn't mind, we do have some new members. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Christy Britt. I'm the executive director at Cultivate. We provide senior services to Boulder County seniors.
Okay, I'm hitting the button.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, so does anybody have a question that they would like to start with? If not, I'm happy to do so. Deanna?
I'll kick it off.
Great.
Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. I just had a pretty easy question, I think. Are you seeing an increased demand while seniors are at home during COVID? I was anticipating that you might be really experiencing some strain on your resources right now, especially with regard to keeping seniors from feeling isolated. Can you just give me a little info on that?
Absolutely. So we are definitely seeing an increase in services at the beginning of the pandemic. Towards the end of March, beginning of April, we actually tripled our grocery program in about 2 weeks. So we are seeing a pretty big increase, although that's leveled out, that the huge influx has plateaued. We're still at that same service level. But what also happened at the same time was some of our other service numbers decreased because medical transportation, for example, those non-critical appointments started to get canceled. So while our numbers are higher overall for the year, we've really been able to respond because we've been able to divert our resources from our lower performing programs. While they're still going, they're just not as high. And so we've been able to respond to the demand. And then to the isolation question, actually on December 1st, we are launching a pilot, just a check-in call program between our volunteers and our clients. And, we're just going to kind of get that process going and really look to fully launch that at the beginning of the year to help with some of that isolation for those relationships and that human contact our clients aren't able to get right now with their volunteers.
Great, thank you. Another board member? Let's do Karen and then Caitlin. Karen, you're on mute.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for being here. I was just wanting to know if you help seniors in nursing homes and other institutions.
We still are, though we do have quite a few clients that do remain in either senior living facilities, some assisted living, things like that. What we've done is really made strong partnerships with the staff at those facilities, and we're able to, if it is a facility that is on lockdown, we've made accommodations where perhaps we drop off groceries at the front door and their staff take them in and distribute them, or figured out the safest way to make that happen so that we can still deliver services but keep our volunteers and our clients and the facilities safe and healthy.
And what was the other question I had? Oh, how many volunteers do you have?
Overall, for all of our programs, so we do serve Boulder and Broomfield counties, we have over 1,000 volunteers.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yes. It's amazing.
Cool.
Great, thank you, Karen. Caitlin?
Hi, Christy. Thanks for being here. My question is around the demographics of the folks that you serve. I'm looking at the breakdown that was provided with the application, and it seems like for City of Longmont, it's fairly heavily skewed toward like non-Latino folks, and I'm wondering what resources you have and or what marketing you do, knowing that overall Longmont's population is 25 to 35%, depending on where you look, Latino.
Absolutely. And that's actually, you know, that demographic tends to skew that way overall for all of Boulder County, not just Longmont. We have put in a lot of resources over the last several years to really ensure that we are making the Latinx community feel welcome and inclusive. We have a bilingual website, we have bilingual staff, and prior to COVID, one of my staff members actually does go and do, she actually had office hours over at El Comité, so we have really strong relationships and ties with the different service organizations as well in Longmont and other Boulder County areas. So what we find, so though it doesn't impact our outreach and marketing, what we find is that there's a difference in the way that the different ethnic groups take care of their own families. I can relate to it being Asian and growing up in an Asian household. And very similarly, we find that in the Latinx area is that the families rally together to really take care of each other. So there's not as, there is still a need. And so that's why we partner with these different service organizations, so that when that need falls within our service areas, we do have that trust and relationships that we can welcome them in. And we do actually have several monolingual Spanish speaking clients because they have been referred to us or they're familiar with our outreach and our bilingual team. But we just find that the approach to those families caring for families is really different based on that heritage and that family unit.
Thank you.
Okay, Christy, I have one question myself. I was really interested in that your agency had identified the medical transportation for veterans to be a key need. And I was wondering, because I almost expected like, oh, veteran transportation for your client group in general would be a key need. Why specifically veterans?
So prior to 2019, we ran what was called our medical mobility program. And we ran that in conjunction with VIA, where we were loosely put as a subcontractor of theirs for rides that they weren't able to fulfill. And that was actually the origination of the program back in about 2008. So towards the end of 2018, VIA had really been putting a lot of resources into their volunteer program so that they could also pick up some of those rides that their standard paratransit program wasn't able to do. And so it was very similar to what we had been doing. And they were also at the same time growing that program within VIA. So, you know, we sat down and really had a conversation of, you know, what's the best use of our resources? Because as they're developing their program, it almost became, or it did become, that we became a duplication of services since they were building that program in-house alongside their paratransit program. So we really had a really in-depth discussion about where is it that we can, we as Cultivate can still fill that need without duplicating services. And the big area that we found was still a huge need that VIA, even with their volunteer program, was likely not going to be able to fill, was the veteran piece, because our volunteers take those veteran clients to the VA appointments. And so as we really identified that, it was like, you know, again, within our agreed discussion, it was like, well, if we're able to service the veterans and we have a good number of veteran drivers, we'd love to keep that whole group of veteran and veteran family members within because it's its own kind of contained group, if you will. And so that was why we decided to break off and really focus on the veteran and veteran family members, so that we could still provide those really out of county, some even out of state into Wyoming rides for our veterans.
Okay, great, thank you. And I want to make sure I open it to staff, Karen or Eliberto, to ask questions before I throw in more.
So
Oh,
my question, I have a question, and it's really around strategic planning, Christy, and wondering, when I read through your application, just wondering if COVID has changed your strategic plan at all, or created, new objectives and goals because of it?
Actually, it has. We usually do our planning retreat in September, which we were able to do this year outdoors, which was beautiful and very socially distanced. And that was one of the pieces that we really looked at is, what within our current strategic plan made sense and where did we need to pivot? Because certainly this year, I think for everybody that, is anywhere, we've had to learn how to pivot. And so that really took our strategic plan into a different direction, where instead of looking at it as a very task-based plan to start with, which had been very successful in the past years, it was like, okay, we have so many unknowns now and into the next year that creating or updating or furthering this task-based plan is what we need right now. So we really broke it out into 3 sections, and with the board and the staff, we're furthering, we're carving those out a little bit more. But we have an outreach area where we're starting to identify different ways of doing things. We used to do everything in person. We used to recruit in person. We used to go to all the tabling events, but obviously those don't exist. So how can we pivot? And what are some of those strategic components that we can bring into now and even short term? And then, even if we do go back to being able to be together again, how can we incorporate some of those into the long-term piece? We also carried forward and really started to dig deeper into our diversity, equity, and inclusion objective, where the goal of that is really just, whole organization commitment and understanding to all of the DEI components. And that goes back to, the earlier question of some of our demographics that do skew Caucasian and do not always represent the populations that we're serving, is how can all of us, from every board member to every staff member, really get that full understanding of what does that look like, and how do we truly infuse that into everything we do across the board. And so really, again, putting those task-based pieces in there where we have done certain specific outreach, and now there's an even bigger opportunity to really just infuse that throughout everything we do. So, again, it has changed our strategic plan, and so we're able to really dig deeper and put some more meaningful pieces into being creative and being able to make sure that we can be sustainable regardless of what this new landscape throws at us.
Great, thank you. Karen, did you have anything you wanted to ask? You're on mute, just in case you did.
No, I was really going to ask about the strategic goals also. So
Okay.
Grabbed my question.
Okay, great.
So we have about a minute and a half remaining.
Okay, I just have one other question. In terms of how needs are identified, typically I would think there's kind of an informal feedback loop, right? You hear things or you have clients that say things. Do you have a more formal way of identifying what specifically people in this area are really needing.
Absolutely. We really align with the Age Well reports as they come out. We're keeping an eye on those trends reports, and with our alignment with the different senior service providers, especially, Michelle Waite over at the Senior Center and things, along with our annual surveys, both to clients and volunteers. We're continually assessing and aligning with those needs, making sure that, we are filling those needs at the county identified level, but then also within the different service provider areas and along with the clients.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other board questions? I'm guessing there's like 30 seconds left, Christy, if you'd like to tell us what we should have asked you but didn't, or if you have any questions for us.
We're about to hit the dinger.
Hit the dinger. Okay, I will super quick. No, really all I can say is that, what COVID really has taught us this year, not taught us, but, exemplified more than ever is just how vulnerable our seniors are. And we are just grateful for the outpouring of volunteers that have stepped up during this time to make sure that we could triple and quadruple our numbers to those seniors that need it the most. So we're just very fortunate and very grateful to continue to be able to do this without any interruption at all, with no wait lists for our critical services. And so we'll just keep on going.
Great. Thanks, Christy. Well, thank you so much for joining us, of course, and everything you do for the seniors in our community.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and enjoy your meetings today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Bruce is in the waiting room. Bridge to Justice. I'm going to go ahead and admit him.
Hey, Bruce, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, we'll jump into it. I'm sure you're busy. Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
So I'm Brian, the chair of the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board this round. And as you remember, we have 15 minutes of Q&A, and then if there's any time left after the board and staff are done asking the questions, we can make that available for anything you think that we maybe should know that we didn't ask about, or any questions that you have. And if you wouldn't mind, Bruce, starting with an introduction for our new board members.
Sure. My name is Bruce Weiner. I'm the founder and executive director of Bridge to Justice. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Boulder. We provide reduced rate legal services, primarily in the areas of family law, so divorce, child custody issues, as well as housing, landlord-tenant issues. We have a public benefits program that's funded by the City of Boulder beverage sweetened tax, the sugar tax, essentially. So we help with appeals of denials, terminations of Medicaid benefits, food stamps, and health insurance tax credits. And I'm also a court-appointed mental health attorney. So we provide civil legal services to essentially folks who don't qualify for free legal aid provided by Boulder County Legal Services, but can't afford a market rate attorney. So we're filling that gap population.
Great, thank you. Okay, does one of the board members have a question you'd like to start with? Anne?
Yes, I was just wondering, it says that all of your board members live in Boulder, I think, or unincorporated county, and I just wondered if you're looking at getting a board member in Longmont, since most of the cases are in Longmont.
Yes, I'm looking at our statistics. We have one board member who lives outside of Boulder County. But you are correct. We don't currently have any board members who reside in Longmont. That has been a goal of ours for a while now. And we've tried to recruit board members in a variety of ways. It's been hard to recruit board members the last several months with COVID. I actually have a meeting with a prospective board member right after this. But it does remain a goal of ours. And it's something that that is important to the organization because a plurality of our clients are based in Longmont. And so any way that we could expand our presence there is something that we'd like to do.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Karen? Karen and then Deanna?
I just wonder, do the courts ever refer people to you?
They do, yes. So it's a little bit tricky in the sense that we do charge fees for our services. We do charge significantly discounted fees. In the past, the Boulder courts have not allowed us to distribute brochures at the courthouse because we charge fees. But we do hear from a number of clients that they've been referred by the self-help centers at the courthouses. So not necessarily the judges, but the court administration staff, and not just in Boulder, but throughout the Denver metro area. So I just want to clarify that we do assist clients outside of Boulder. About 25% of our clients are outside of Boulder County. So pretty much every jurisdiction up and down the Front Range between Greeley and Colorado Springs, our attorneys have appeared in.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Deanna?
So it looked like from your application that you have 3 attorneys on staff. And I know, because I used to work for legal services in Oregon, that we just had a huge number of clientele that reached out to us that we were not able to assist. And I would imagine with your area, there's probably a huge demand for services. I don't know if you have any statistics on how many people that reach out to you that you're not able to serve. And then also, do you work with pro bono attorneys or other referring attorneys to augment the 3 staff attorneys that you have?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So we don't turn away clients for lack of resources. We do turn away clients if we can assist in a particular subject matter. So we don't handle criminal defense. We're not doing personal injury, immigration. We do occasionally get inquiries for those kinds of cases. But we've been fortunate that we haven't had to turn people away because we don't have the staff resources to assist. I think the reason for that is because we require clients to go through a pretty rigorous intake process. And so the clients who are not that serious about getting services tend to not go through that process. But if we need to schedule out a week or 2 in advance, we'll do that. And we encourage clients to contact us as soon as possible and not necessarily right before a hearing. We do work with 2 contract attorneys who have their own private practices, and we pay them a reduced rate for the services that they provide. So we currently have 3 full-time staff attorneys, 1 part-time staff attorney, and 2 contract attorneys. So we're not working with any pro bono attorneys right now, just because we don't have the need. I think we're staffed at the appropriate level right now, but we're willing to make adjustments as needed.
Great, thank you. I had one question for you, Bruce. One of your outcomes is a, let's see, 5% increase in the total number of attorney hours provided for post-decree cases in 2021 compared to 2020. For a non-legal person, I'm not sure why that's a win. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So post-decree legal services refers to family law cases, divorce, or a child custody case where the court has entered either a divorce decree or a child custody order, and one of the parties seeks to modify or enforce that order.
Okay.
So the reason that we focus on those cases and we have a separate category in the outcome section is because Boulder County Legal Services doesn't have the resources to assist with post-decree family law cases. And that's how we got started, because they were looking for a nonprofit agency to refer those cases to. So that constitutes about 2/3 of our family law cases. It's a pretty significant portion, not just of the number of cases, but the number of hours, because those cases tend to be higher conflict. They last typically for months at a time. We've had some cases that can go on for years. There's no finish line like there is, let's say, in a divorce case where the court's going to enter the divorce decree. So we certainly try and encourage the client to settle. As I'm sure many of you know, family law is not, going to court is not the ideal outcome most of the time in those kinds of cases. The problem with post-decree work is that it means somewhere along the way the parties were not able to resolve their conflict on their own. Mm-hmm. And so the prospects of settlement tend to be lower than it is for pre-decree cases. So we focused on the number of hours as an outcome because we think that's more representative of the amount of work that we're doing in that area rather than focusing on the number of cases, just because the cases tend to last so long.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And Karen, it looks like you have a question. Sorry, Karen Roney.
Karen. Yeah, I was just looking at my notes. So it looks like in the initial section of your application where we're asking for strategic goals, I didn't see a lot of strategic goals for the agency. It's kind of a description of what you do and who you're serving. So, Bridge to Justice has been around for a little while now. And so just wondering kind of what's on the horizon in terms of the strategy and kind of what are the strategic goals for your organization? Because it looks like you've stabilized, you've got some additional staff. It's not just Bruce, and so what's the horizon look like for your agency?
So before COVID, we were thinking about expanding and having a satellite office. We were thinking about somewhere in either Greeley or Fort Collins and possibly in South Denver, because we've been getting more and more referrals from those areas. With COVID, those plans have been put on hold. We have not been able to serve clients at the Hour Center. So we were staffing an office at the Hour Center 1 day a week. Obviously, that's been put on hold with COVID. So our plans to grow our office presence had been a priority of ours to serve more clients. We don't know when that's going to be possible, obviously. And so I would say that's something that we've been thinking about for a while now. I think another goal of ours has to be more nimble in terms of our staffing. And I think we've accomplished that this year by having a combination of full-time attorneys. We have a part-time attorney as well as 2 contract attorneys. So that's made the agency less dependent on me and our other staff attorney who focuses primarily on family law cases. So if we have an influx of work, all of a sudden, we can delegate that to a contract attorney. And so that allows us to reduce our overhead expenses, but to meet the need of the community. I would also add, we've been working with a law student from the University of Colorado Law School to interpret for our monolingual Spanish-speaking clients. And she's been with us for about a year now. She had been clerking, and now we've been paying her. And that's worked really, really well. And we've had a number of Longmont cases that kind of those ongoing post-decree cases that I was talking about earlier. And our law student interpreter has done a great job. So now we have the ability to work with monolingual Spanish speakers.
Great, thank you.
Thanks,
Any other board members or Alberto? Okay.
Caitlin?
Hold on.
Go for
Yeah,
it.
just a real quick question, Bruce, about your reserves. It looks like you're building them up, and just wondering what the goal is. It sounds your staffing model has changed, and I'm just wondering if that's going to help with your reserves. Because I was looking at your budget and at what you have. Ideally it'd be 3 months, and you're not quite there just yet. So I was wondering what the thought was.
Yeah, so it varies, as I'm sure you've seen from our financials. What's difficult for us in terms of planning is we have a fee-for-service business model that's based on client fees, and that varies from month to month. So it's hard to, we project what we're going to bring in a certain year, but it varies just based on the number of total cases, the number of ongoing cases where we have retainers and we bill against those retainers. Right now we have roughly about $80,000 in reserves, which for us is pretty good. I know that it's not exactly 3 months, but it's been lower in the past, which is not something that I'm proud of, but it's tough, I would say. I mean, we supplement our fee for service, our legal fees with grants, with donations. We did get a PPP loan earlier this year. I would say so we now have a part-time attorney in lieu of a full-time attorney, and that will save us probably about $20,000 to $30,000 next year in overhead expenses. So we do expect that to increase our reserves.
Thank you, Bruce. Karen, would you mind giving us a time update?
Yeah, 1.5 minutes, and I think Caitlin had a question.
Yep, go for it, Caitlin.
Hey, Bruce. You mentioned earlier that you do a fairly extensive intake to assess, at least in part, it sounds like the financial status of folks coming in who don't qualify for legal aid, but maybe can't afford market rate. With these cases that go on potentially for years, are there other checkpoints along the way that you're doing around the amount of costs they're incurring, as well as their ongoing financial status at all? Or is it really just at that beginning point?
So we only have one formal intake process, and that occurs at the beginning of the case. I would note in all family law cases in Colorado, they're mandatory financial disclosures. So both parties by law have to exchange things like tax returns. They have to complete a sworn financial affidavit, pay stubs, bank account information, credit card information, and that has to be updated typically every couple of months. And then especially before you go to trial, the parties have to update their financial disclosures. So just in the course of the representation, we see the client's financial documents. And if we discover that their income is increased, we have that discussion. I would say that's very rare for a client's income to increase in a manner that puts them over our income guidelines.
Sort of related to that, do you do any assessment, whether it's after one of those cases finishes or otherwise, to assess the impact of them having saved money on those legal fees? I worked in family law for a while, so I know that, for example, those costs sometimes follow people for
Right.
years and years, and it's sort of never ending to get out for some families.
Right. So we had a social return on investment study conducted on us, and this was in 2017. So it's been a couple of years now, but this was a study conducted by the Colorado Institute for Social Impact. And at the time, they found that we had saved the local community $3.7 million. And they broke it down in 4 different areas. It was domestic violence related costs, health costs, attorney's fees, and I think court costs, I think was the 4th category. So it was a pretty exhaustive study that hasn't been updated. I would love to do a more updated study. But as far as I'm aware, that was the first kind of longitudinal study that had been done on a nonprofit like ours, like basically a reduced rate nonprofit law firm, not just in Colorado, but in the country that I'm aware of. So I could provide a copy of that to you if you're interested.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Okay. Should I send that to Eliberto?
Yep, I think that, and then he can distribute it. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
We are out of time.
Thank you, Madam Timer.
Well,
Thank you, Bruce, for joining us and all the work you do in the community. It's very much appreciated.
thank you all.
Hi, Bruce. Thanks.
Take care.
All right. So Diane, oh, did you have a question, Polly?
Oh, no, I just wanted to tell everybody I have an eye appointment at 3:50, so I'm going to have to leave midway through the Hour Center thing. I just wanted to know.
All right. Thanks. Hope everything goes okay.
Karen, I'm getting a glass of water real quick.
Okay.
2 seconds.
I think we're a minute ahead, so we're good.
How
I
did
think
that
that's Diane.
happen?
I don't know. Let's see.
Diane's in.
Yeah, is that from CPWD?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's Diane
I
Groff.
was trying to find the schedule real quick.
Diane Groff, yep.
Oh, and there's a phone caller, and I'm not sure where they're from.
Probably CPWD.
Okay, we'll wait for Brian to get back and we'll let him in.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna admit Diane and the phone caller. I can change their name once I know who they are. I think I can change their name once I know who they are. So, person on the phone, if we could know who it is.
Yay.
Hey, Diane, who do you have on the line?
Maria.
I guess it's Maria calling in.
Okay.
So Maria, is that you?
This is Jason Konzak. I'm one of the dial-in users.
Jason, are you with CPWD?
Yeah, I'm one of their board members.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Brian.
Jason, you gonna put Jason in there?
Yeah, I put Jason, yeah.
Okay. And then Diane, you expecting anybody else?
Maria.
Oh, you are expecting one more. Okay.
Yeah, but we can begin. I know we have a little bit of time, so let's begin. Oh.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm Brian, the board chair of the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We have 15 minutes. As you know, it's Q&A format, and then if there's any time left, if we end before the 15 minutes, you can share anything that you think would be helpful for us to know or ask questions. And it would be great if you wouldn't mind starting with introductions of yourselves, please. Starting with Diane, I think.
All right. Good afternoon, Diane Groff. I'm the Longmont manager at CPWD at 615 North Main. We're across from the downtown Dairy Queen. And I've been with CPWD for 36 years. It's amazing.
Thank you, Diane. And Jason, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. So I'm Jason Konzak. I've been a board member of CPWD for, I want to say 3 years now, or years makes no difference. I live in Longmont and work up in Boulder. I'm a IT consultant by trade, and have been involved on the board for just a little while here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jason. Thank you for joining us, Maria. Nice to see you. We're just doing introductions. If you wouldn't mind, you have perfect timing.
Great. Hi, everyone. Maria Stepanian. I'm the Executive Director at Center for People with Disabilities. Have been with the center for 11 years, I believe, and about 3 years in the role of the ED.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to open it up to board members or staff with any initial questions. I am not seeing any. Oh, Karen Phillips, please, and then Councilmember Christensen.
I just had a question on a couple of questions, really. Do you work with case management people too, or is this strictly not case management?
Well, we partner with people on working on their goals, and we believe that the independent living philosophy is alive and well with consumer control. So if an individual has goals that they're working on, we partner, we work on a lot with acquisition of benefits, navigating the system, educating, empowering the individual so that they are making the decisions.
The other question I had was, do disabled people volunteer, and what kind of things do they volunteer to do?
We love when people volunteer, yes. And we've had a really great success with our front desk receptionist position in the Longmont office. So much so that people have re-entered the workforce with the volunteer work and then partnered with Division of Vocational Rehab at times and gone on to employment. So we welcome people to volunteer with us.
That are disabled?
Most definitely, yeah. And in fact, our charter is that 51% of our board members and our staff are people with disabilities.
Yeah, I was thinking they almost need a demographic for disabled people too on different, because you weren't able to list how many, I mean, you kind of mentioned that you have a lot of people that are disabled, but it's not like a demographic, which in reality it probably should be. But anyway, yeah, that was all I kind of had a question about. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Councilmember Christensen.
I just had a small question. How many people over the course of the year do you deal with? Different people. And I like your glasses.
So in Longmont, we generally see around 350 individuals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I had a question that I was trying to tease out here. So first of all, is governance of the organization does that also involve your clients? So in terms of like board makeup or bylaws or mission, because I'm trying to wrap my head around this idea of the independent living kind of framework, how it may be different than, say, case management, how its intentions may reflect in governance. Is there any component of that?
I can speak to services in that we are on an ongoing basis asking for input on the types of, right now, the virtual services that are offered. And it's tailored to people's needs and living independently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the, probably nothing more than the fact that more than 51% of the board members are individuals with disabilities. So often we do have board members who also benefit from the services we provide.
Mm. Okay. Thank you, Maria. That's helpful as well. Councilmember Christensen.
I thought of another question. Can you tell me what your relationship is with the St. Vrain School District and whether you get a lot of kids or teachers who are in the school system?
I'll start. Our youth transitions program does interface with the school district, and it's been a process of about 4 or 5 years in cultivating those relationships and providing at first after school clubs and now providing school time curriculum. Do you have more information, Maria?
I think you nailed it, Diane. We mostly work with the transition school in our transition services. Outside of that program, which is specifically for youth with disabilities who are in their last couple of years after the high school, the Main Street School, for example, that we have, we generally have relationship with that school and provide youth transition services, but I don't recall anything outside of that. We have provided workshops, and I really cannot remember if that specifically was St. Vrain Valley School District or other school, but I know we have presented.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
I was just, it's me.
One other benefit of our youth transition services is families will then come in and additional family members will realize services are applicable. And we also worked with a family who was monolingual Spanish speaking, and the mom then started receiving services as well. So it's nice to see when things overlap.
Wonderful, thank you. Staff, or let's see, Diana, and then Eliberto.
Me first or staff? I can take a backseat to staff.
Sorry, Diana, you're first, and then Eliberto will ask his burning question.
Okay, so first I just wanted to say hi. I was the person that did the site visit way back. It feels like 10,000 years ago, right before COVID hit. So nice to see your faces again. I'm Deanna, and I just had a question since when Eliberto and I came and saw you guys, obviously COVID was not yet an issue. I'm just curious if you've had to really sort of change your approach based on COVID hitting, and whether you've seen a change in the specific demands associated or needs of your customers based on COVID coming.
Yes, there has been a change. Probably the most challenging is our monolingual Spanish-speaking community members, and technology barriers, comfort level. So we do have our conference room set up for safe distancing, and when we have to, individuals will meet with our bilingual independent living advisor in that regard. We also learned that there's some places that people can fax in or scan to email their documents. We also have a click to mail way that we can send information back. So our Beyond Vision program went through a lot of technology challenges, and that's pretty much where they went from meeting in groups to meeting virtually, but learning how to navigate. And assistive technology is the great equalizer for access for people. But yeah.
Thank you.
I can just add a little bit that we have seen the different waves since March, where in the beginning we were receiving a lot of phone calls for resources. Where do I get the food and assistance with rent? And we saw an increase in need that were more urgent. And then we saw the need for increased assistive technology, because as people got a little settled, they saw the need to stay connected. And so we provided all those tech training that Diane was mentioning about. And then we saw similarly, just like everyone else in the community, we started seeing the isolation factor and our consumers really getting emotionally unstable and wanting some support. And so our services for peer support at that time increased. So today we provide daily peer support calls twice a day for any individual with a disability that can join. So we are seeing this different increase in different services as the time changes and the environment changes. And I can anticipate that we will still see more mental health support needed as we are going into the holidays and into winter months.
Thank you, Maria.
A nice outgrowth will be to continue the virtual supports when we can meet in person again too, because we've seen such a value in people coming together from all over.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Diane. Alberto, go ahead.
Yeah, so a real quick, this is more of an agency level question, maybe from Maria, maybe from Jason. So I looked at your 2019 audit and your year end, and it seems you're doing pretty well. Just wondering about any plans to increase your reserves. It felt when I read the reserve number, I felt that that was a little low, and you struggled to if you needed it for a 3-month span.
Yeah, certainly we would like to increase it, and we are going after any grant opportunities that are coming out. We're applying for a lot of funding. Yeah, other than the fact that we are diligently staying aware of funding opportunities and applying, I don't have any more than that to say for building the reserves at this time.
Karen Phillips.
I have a question too. How do you help with the housing and placement? Do you have housing that you work with? I mean, housing is a problem for everybody, but it's probably even harder for people that are disabled.
Another outgrowth of being virtual is we now have collectively put all of our housing information together, and we will have that available on our website. We encourage people to navigate the system, educate them about the options that are available. We don't own any residential, but we work with people to understand their rights and their responsibilities as tenants. We get a lot of reasonable accommodation requests to figure out how to navigate that path. And it really does come down to conversations and feeling comfortable in becoming a self-advocate and building that relationship with the landlord property manager. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Karen, go ahead. Karen Roney.
Yes, and you were going to ask, there's 2 minutes left. So, so in the question about needs assessments and how do you conduct those, the response was we know our clients, we listen to our clients, and so we know their needs, which is great. And how else? I mean, because there are probably needs and trends out there that might not be reflective of the clients that you're serving. So how do other people know about your services, and how do you stay on top of needs and trends beyond the input that you receive from the people that you work with?
I'll start.
I'm sorry, consumers, not clients, sorry.
Right. We are part of statewide conversations through COVID, the access and functional needs conversations, and hearing from other centers for independent living. We reach a wide area. We have rural needs that are much different than urban needs. And it's the collaborations, the times that we come together and we see the trends of accessing resources and then being engaged in the communities that we serve with raising awareness to need for accessible housing or transportation services, and or even printed materials being in a variety of formats. So those are just some of the additional areas besides asking the individuals that we work with. Yeah.
Yeah, I can add, we do participate in statewide surveys and other local projects. So very recently, the Statewide Independent Living Council that works with the existing 9 independent living centers in Colorado conducted a statewide survey, and we were part of that effort, and we received the responses as well. We also participated at the meal levy needs assessment specifically for individuals with IDD that Boulder County conducted. So our consumers participated, our staff participated. So additional ways I would say are us participating in efforts that are organized by the community.
And our time has ended.
Great, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Jason. I'm sorry you didn't get a chance to cut in, but we appreciate you.
That's
being
all right.
on.
Thank you. And I do want to say Jason is one of the 2 board members that are Longmont residents.
Okay, well, awesome.
So thank you for doing that. Thank you for recruiting, and Jason, thank you for serving.
Yay.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a
Have
good
a great
day.
day.
Bye.
Thank you all.
We have no one in the hopper. I'm not sure what's next. I hadn't found the schedule yet.
Next is our center. So,
Oh, El Comité.
Okay.
next is El Comité. Sorry. And Donna has arrived. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and let Donna in.
Hi, Donna, can you hear us? If you can and you're saying yes, you're on mute.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. Is your video available?
Yeah. Let me see. Oh,
What's the point if we can't see you?
I know. Ooh, Ronnie. Miss Ronnie. Karen Rooney.
Hi.
We're here. Hi, Liberto. Hi, everybody.
Still here after all these years, Becky.
See there? Now you know who it is.
I knew who it was.
The mouth wasn't loud enough.
Round. We said round.
Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm the chair of the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board, and as you know, we have 15 minutes Q&A. If there's any time, we use less time than that, we can certainly make sure you have the opportunity to share anything you think we would like to know. And we do have some new board members, and that's always helpful even for some of those who've been on the board. If you would do introductions, please.
I'm Donna Lobato. I'm the executive director here at El Comité. I've been here for 2 years as interim executive director and 2 years as executive director.
And my name is Becky Berkalow, and I've been on the board for 2 years, I think.
Great, thank you. Oh, Karen,
Who's the little guy? Is that your grandson?
That's the baby.
The other one's over there.
The other one is here too.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad they could join us as well. So I'd like to open it up to the board and staff for any initial questions. Okay.
This board.
Sorry, to the Housing and Human Services Advisory.
Okay.
Yep. And go ahead.
I didn't know.
Okay.
Hi. Hi, Donna. I just wondered how things have changed in your agency with the pandemic. What needs have been growing and just how it's impacted the agency.
Well, what's really been interesting, Martha has retired from the board. So people still come in looking for her, and then we say, well, she's retired, but we can help you. So we haven't seen a reduction in clients. We're seeing on average about 200. I do have to tell you that last month, October, we probably were down by 50 clients because 2 of my staff got COVID and we had to all quarantine. And we're trying to do a lot more over the phone so that they don't have to come in. I think part of it, Anne, is that the clients that we work with are really the most vulnerable people in our community. So most of our clients speak only Spanish. And so part of it is they don't have access to the computer. And even if they do, because maybe their children have a computer, they have no idea how to navigate it. They're really not interested in learning. And so that's been kind of something that we're seeing. The other thing is our doors are locked and everything is by appointment only. So when they come in, they can't bring their neighbor who gave them a ride or their brother, sister, cousin, whatever. They're the only ones that can come in. With our attorneys, so we set up our room back here. We have we've written grants. We have masks. We have the room air filters. We have, the stuff to clean our hands. We've got little ones that we can give to clients so they can do it. So we're really trying to do everything we can so that people are not getting sick, not only them, but staff. Yoli and I tested, we were negative, so far, good job. So we take their temperature when they come in. So it's been really difficult. And so all of our attorneys are meeting with them via the Zoom thing, but they have to come into the office to meet with them. So our office remains open. We had been doing our classes at the parks during the summer. And now that it's colder, we've done the same thing. We've set up the room for 3 students. We've got our citizenship, but we're actually going to close because now Boulder County's on the orange, safer working at home. And so we're going to kind of cancel them till after the holidays and kind of see what happens. We have lost 3 of our clients to the COVID. They're all impacted. We did get probably, and don't quote me on this one, but I'm going to say about $40,000 in money so that we can help people pay their rent. And they have to be undocumented. So we've been working a lot with the Hour Center, not only for our undocumented clients, but our clients that are documented. And even some we've been referring to the helpline. We're getting a lot more requests for the food. So I know like the Hour Center is probably going crazy. And every time they say somebody's here passing out food, we put it on our door, we put it on our Facebook. A lot of them don't do the Facebook, but so definitely things are changing.
The other thing we're doing is we're doing citizenship paperwork in the office when the attorneys are here. Instead of having a Saturday where 25 to 50 people show up to have paperwork done, we've been doing that in the office because I trained a little bit, but Jeanette and Rosie, what group are they using the site through?
CIRC. So CIRC, they do it all over. It's really kind of cool because we have it's their account, but we have our own account. We have 4 staff accounts and 3 attorney accounts. So we put everything on there. We send it to the attorney, they review it. The client comes in, they meet with them Zoom. And so we can do basically the citizenships, and we do sometimes every day. We have at least 3 a week. And that's been really nice that we're able to do that. So we're not going to do quarterly anymore. So thank you, Beck.
Yeah, it's just on a regular rolling basis instead of once a quarter and a big push. It's just much more as people come in and say they want to become citizens. It's being done in that way, and it's being done with the attorneys over Zoom. So and we should say too, when they were closed, calls were being forwarded. Wait, not forwarded. We were giving phone numbers for Rosie and Jeanette,
but they were being forwarded,
and so that they could still handle customers when we originally shut down in March, I think it was. And so there were reduced hours, and then there was a while when they weren't open at all. But clientele were still being helped via telephone with follow up by staff.
So what we did is we got another grant to buy 2 cell phones and 2 laptops. So this way Rosie and Jeanette continue working at home. And then we have one of the old flip tops, and that's what Yoli was using. So the calls from the front desk were being forwarded to Yoli, and then each staff person we're doing a lot of follow-up this year, which is part of our grant. So we're able to call, we not only called clients from 2019, but the first quarter of 2020. And now when we were all on quarantine again, as long as people were not sick, they were calling people that we've been seeing throughout the year.
Great, thank you. I want to make sure that we have
Yeah.
time for questions. So I'd like to open it up again to the board or staff for any additional questions. Councilmember Christensen.
Donna, hi Becky. Are you still doing, I'm glad you answered that question about the citizenship. I think that actually might work a lot better in many ways, you know, less lines and things. So that's wonderful. I'm wondering if you're still doing any English classes.
We are. We've been doing it through the summer. We had them at the parks. So, and we had our citizenship classes also at the park. The ones that we haven't been doing much of is the ones in Spanish. We don't have any students for that, but we're ready to meet with them if they want to. This last week, for the first time, we brought our classes in. So many people, if they don't have COVID, they know somebody who has COVID. So our numbers in those classes are down to like 3, I think, and 5 in the other. So it's not very many people.
Great, thank you. Alberto.
Hey, Donna. I'm happy to hear you've been getting lots of grants. I think I was looking at your financials and in particular your report, and I'm just wondering, you know, what's the plan moving forward? I know you had to cancel some grants and a couple of other things. I'm just wondering what the plan is moving forward. I know you've been meeting with Eric, and I'm just wondering. It looks like you have a reserve, but you're depleting that. And so just want to make sure.
Yeah. We actually we had and again I don't have the numbers right in front of me. We had like 40,000 in reserve, and back in February, March, we took out like 10,000 of that money. You know, and you're right, Alberto, a lot of our money has been designated. So like the PPP was designated specifically for staff salaries. The grant from the Latino Foundation was again to buy the computers and the laptops. The grant we got from Philanthropies, and I'm gonna tell you not the Rose, the other one, Colorado, were specific to help the clients pay their rent. But you know what? We're being very frugal. I didn't replace Martha when she retired.
We talked about cutting expenses in March. Once I took a look at the accounts, we started cutting in March. We were looking at office supplies. We kind of looked at everything to see where we could save money. But Eliberto, you're absolutely right. We missed our big fundraiser this year, which is good for us for between $35,000 and $40,000 at one pop. And we've missed that because that was scheduled for March, April
3rd.
And of course, by that time, Boulder County had shut everything down. So,
so what we're looking at also, Alberto, is people are starting to do virtual fundraising things. And so I've been talking with the lady from, I think, the Therapeutic Writing Center, I forget her name. They did a real successful fundraising, all virtual. So we're working with them, and she gave us the name of the company, and we've sent them all our information. So we need to see what it's going to cost and kind of where we go from there. We did a direct mailing. I think we've done twice this year. We've signed up and did all the paperwork for the December Giving Tuesday. And I just keep searching grants and writing grants.
And Sarah Levison, of course, has also talked about doing like a virtual auction, because normally we auction off, we do a silent auction with bids for baskets, tequila and margarita glasses, or wine cutting boards. And so Sarah has been looking into trying to do that as an auction online, specifically those things to try and raise some money.
Great, thank you. 5 minutes, Karen, Rooney, or no? You didn't read my mind that time. 3 minutes. And
3
you
minutes,
have,
right?
Oh, she's giving us the.
you're on mute.
Oh,
Sorry.
Karen Boney, you're on mute. Yeah.
oh, Karen's on mute.
I'm
Yeah.
on mute. No. The so you did talk a little bit about ESL. So I guess what I am interested in is what what education classes are you offering now? So if you're saying you still offer some ESL classes, so what are you offering in comparison to others that are offering services, ESL services in the community?
So,
how do you know
yeah.
what your niche is now?
Absolutely. So the ESL classes, because we went from having something like 6 to 8 teachers, we're down to, we have one teacher. She teaches the class Tuesday and Thursdays from 10 to 12. And so the funding that we got for that program came specific from, I want to say it was an educational grant that I wrote to pay for that teacher specific. And so what's different from our class, from other classes, one, we don't have as many students. Our students tend to be professionals, for lack of a better word, in the community that are trying to learn more of a formalized English. And so our teacher is certified in ESL teaching. We also use it's a state certified curriculum. And so that's what makes it a little bit different, and it's harder to have, when we used to have so many teachers, we had levels 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 6, I think. And we just, because we lost the state funding, no fault of our own, they just wanted the education program to include a GED program and other things that we just don't do. Our main focus is to try to get teachers, I think, throughout the year, because they come and they go. We probably serve maybe, and again, don't quote me on this without me checking for sure, about 20 people in our ESL program from January through December.
So is it a year-long? So you say it's a statewide curriculum?
Yes.
But
So
what is it? So I mean, is it for a year and it covers versus the others that were different levels? I'm trying to.
It's still in levels, and we still use the books 1 through 6. But what's happened is we had 2 different teachers, but because of the COVID, that teacher has gone. Hopefully we can get her back. So we were basically doing levels 1, 2, and 3 together, and then 3, 4, 5, and 6 together. So the evening class was more higher level teaching. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's a higher level. So, and Victoria still tests them to find out where they're at. And the truth is there's another really good program here in Longmont through Intercambio. And so some of our students go to Intercambio and then they also come to us. So we share the same clients. Sometimes they come to us and they decide they like Intercambio. It's very good. They do a lot of, because a lot of our families are isolated. And so they do a lot of activities and they get to meet more people. And so it's a great program. And like I say, some of them come to us on one day a week and go to them on another day of the week.
I would say that ours, Roni, is less social.
Mm-hmm. It's
more education based than it is social, like Intercambio, because I've volunteered with Intercambio too.
Me too.
So Brian, do you have one last
1 minute?
question, even though we've ended our time. So so Donna, even though Martha has retired, she's still out there. Mm-hmm. So and doing business. So how is that working?
Well, we can't control what she does. We don't refer clients to her. She's not under our insurance. She's not affiliated with El Comité at all. We really thought we would see a reduction in clients, but we haven't. And in fact, we've seen more. So, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but, now that Martha's not here, I really want to help you to help me with this. And I think part of it is because Martha knows a lot of our clients, not only from the community, from her church work. And I'm not saying Martha didn't honor confidentiality. I think they were more reluctant to share things with her. So we are getting clients. We're encouraging, we've told all of our agencies that we work with, I'll give you a good example, the police department, the DA's office, to refer clients to us. And the truth is we don't refer clients to her, but today we actually got a client referral back from her. And at all the community meetings where she says, I'm not retiring, I'm still here. She's not been to any of the community meetings because I do go to the community meetings. So I think it's just difficult for her to retire. It's what her family wanted. You know, I think.
Yeah, I went over our time. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. But we wish her well.
All right. Thank you, Donna and Becky, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Yeah, have a great rest of your day, and thank you for all the work you do in the community.
Thank you, guys. And if you ever come in, we have lots of sanitizers and everything. So thank you for everything. And yeah, stay healthy, everybody, and safe. And I tested negative, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye, guys. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
So we have Elaine and Mark from the Art Center. As a reminder, they're applying for two programs, so they're scheduled for 30 minutes.
So then, yeah, the next, so Our Center, United Way, and VIA each applied for 2 programs. So they are, all the remaining sessions are 30 minutes.
Okay. I did not see 2 for United Way, but I'll take a look again.
There are 2.
Yeah, they're high and volunteer
program.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. I'm admitting them now.
Hey, Mark.
Hello, everyone. How are y'all today?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing all right, thanks. Grinding away.
Yeah, I'm sure. Hi, Elaine. Can you hear us okay?
She's on mute.
There we go. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
That's all right. And if you have video, we are always love to see our partners. But if you don't, that's okay too.
There we go.
Right.
Awesome.
Fully here.
Well, thank you for joining us. You know the way it works with the 15-minute Q&A, and if there's any time left, if we don't hit 15 minutes, so you can share with us what you would like or what you think we should still need to know. And Karen is starting me with 30 minutes. 30 minutes. I'm already.
We have 2 programs. It'll be 30 minutes total. And Brian, Saturday we did this. We just we didn't divide it up into specific questions about specific programs. We just we opened that up to whatever people had questions about. So
Great.
If you're flexible with answering about basic needs and/or childcare, that's kind of how it worked pretty well that way.
Great. That sounds wonderful. Thank you. So I'm Brian, the chair of the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board. We do have some new board members. If you wouldn't mind starting with introductions, that'll be really helpful. And Mark, why don't you go ahead and start?
Sure. My name is Mark Cowell. I'm the executive director for the Our Center and Aspen Center. I started there July 1st of last year, so about 1.5 years now.
Great. And Elaine?
And I'm Elaine Klotz. I'm the development director here at Our Center.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to open it up to the board and staff for any initial questions. Karen Phillips and then Deanna.
I just was wanting to know how are you different? How do you differ from the YMCA for childcare? Do you guys work together, or how does that kind of work?
So I can't speak specifically to the WISE program. I'm not very familiar with it. I can tell you our program is a 5-star rated program. I believe there's only 2 of us in the county. We have a new director who started in January, who's been doing a phenomenal job there at the school and bringing it up to speed with a little bit more technology, helping us align a little bit more with St. Vrain Valley School District and the expectations of those children when they transfer from our preschool to school districts. So we're making sure those children are as classroom ready as possible before they arrive in the St. Vrain Valley School District classrooms. And I know that Elizabeth's working a lot more too on just a lot more hands-on experiential learning, not doing as much with the typical toys that you would see sometimes in some preschools. It's a lot more experiential, a lot more nature-based education. They're doing STEAM, which is science, technology. Oh my gosh, I knew I'd forget the rest of it. I bet Elaine can finish the EAM for me. Math, arts, and can't remember. Engineering. Yeah. So,
do you guys have a waiting list?
We were starting to have a wait list before COVID, and then COVID just blew everything up for us. So, right now we're basically just doing what we can to keep the kids and the staff and the families safe and keep programs going, and keep enough enrollments going where we can afford to pay our bills. So we're almost there, and now we're just in a total different mode until this crisis passes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I would add to that is different from some centers is that we don't limit the number of children we will take on CCAP or based on their income. As long as we have the slots for them, we will accept them. So we're covering all ranges of income, but of course, particularly catering to the lower income population.
And right now we're just over a third of the kiddos in our school right now are CCAP or sliding scale.
So since you're asking about that, we're talking about childcare. So what is your current capacity? So how many kids are you able to serve now as compared to your typical capacity?
So we are at about 32 kids right now, which is just a little under 50% of our normal capacity. Before we were operating in the mid 70s, between 70 and 80% of our capacity. Now we're operating just under 50%. We're not necessarily looking to bring in new kids. We may take it on a case-by-case basis, but again, right now it's a matter of staffing, keeping everyone healthy and safe. So we're just under, right around 50% or just under with our capacity.
And so that's really by your choice in order to meet COVID protocols, or is that in response to the lessening demand, or both?
A little of both. Part of it is us making sure that we can have the numbers, which are very difficult because we can only have so many individuals in a classroom, and we can't go between classrooms, so that's really difficult. And then 2, we're not seeing a whole lot of families coming and knocking on our door right now, because I'm sure they're dealing with their own issues around COVID. So it's a little bit of both.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Deanna, and then Caitlin.
My question actually was also about enrollment. So I'll just ask sort of an associated question to that. So I'm not sure if I missed it, but did you say, do you have a higher percentage of CCAP enrollments right now during COVID, or is it maintained pretty consistently?
Elaine, you can correct me if I'm wrong. We're usually around 25% to 30%, and now we're, I would say we're more like 35%, and that's mainly because a lot of the CCAP kids didn't go anywhere during COVID. I think in many ways those families need the preschool so they can go to work, whereas a lot of our full pay tuition kiddos, they're in a little bit better situation financially, so maybe one parent can work from home and stay with the kids. And we also noticed too that a lot of families, that if they had an older sibling who was attending St. Vrain Valley, when St. Vrain Valley went virtual, they were like, well, I'm home anyways. I could save myself a significant chunk of change. I'm going to bring, little Johnny home too. So the percentage has gone up, and it's, I think, primarily because the CCAP families can't not have their child go to school so they can go to work because they don't have the option to work from home.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Brian?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so, and maybe this is just an ignorant question, but I'm just wondering then, does that impact your finances? Meaning, do you receive lower pay for the CCAP kids that are in versus the full pay, or is it the same, basically?
Yeah, typically we receive a few $100s less a month per CCAP slot, and then we don't get paid for any days that they're absent past 3 days. So again, with COVID, there's some children who are missing more than 3 days. After that third day passes, we cannot get paid. Whereas the full pay, we get paid the full 22 days for the month, whether they're there or not. So there's a couple factors that play in, but we do get paid less.
And Caitlin and then Eliberto, it looked like you had a question. Okay.
Yeah, so I noticed that it looks like you closed for about a month, the Aspen Center, is that correct?
About a month and a half, mid-April to July 1st to kiddos, but we had teachers out for about 3 weeks.
Okay, got it. So I guess I'm curious, as of the application date, the loss of revenue you noted was at about 115,000 for the child care center. Is that still an accurate estimate? How is it looking sort of month over month right now? And sort of what is your projection going into next year if things sort of stay, let's say they stayed where they are right now, what would the revenue implications of that be?
Yeah, so we're just under 50% capacity, where before we were closer to 80% full capacity. So we're about $20,000 less a month coming in revenue-wise. And we've done a really good job of offsetting that by altering staff schedules. Unfortunately, staff are working less hours, so I know that affects their paychecks, but we're also trying to support them here at the Hour Center with our services, so we're trying to balance that out. And we're also, just a lot of things that we might have done in the past, we've really just kind of streamlined everything to as bare bones as we can to offset that. So we're pretty close to balancing that budget, but it's really difficult right now. There's just no extras. Staff aren't getting all the hours that they normally would. I would project what we've seen the first 6 months or so. We're going to continue to see at least through December 31st. And then who knows what COVID brings us in 2021. But I think this trend is going to continue for us, at least for a few months into the next year.
Great. Thanks.
So, Mark, that actually piggybacks really good into my question. In reading your strategic goals, so strategic goal number 5 talks about analyze and build the necessary infrastructure that will allow the Aspen Center to increase enrollment and quality of services. I know you've been having conversations for quite some time at the board level about the future of the Aspen Center, in particular because it's in a historic building, and that, as wonderful that is, that causes some issues. And so I'm just wondering if you could give us an update on those conversations.
Sure. So before COVID, we were starting to kick around, not super seriously, but we were kicking around, do we start looking for a different building, a more updated building, perhaps a building that's, well, one would be bigger so we could have more enrollments, we could have more kids, and one that we could have more services inside. So for instance, instead of all the meals being cooked here at the Hour Center being transported over, being able to do all that in-house. So that was just some initial talks just before COVID hit, but we were committing to an assistant director to help Elizabeth, who is our director, so she could be out in the community more, participating more on community committees and community groups. And then we were also looking to basically see how close we could get to maximizing our enrollment to 100%, which would require a couple more staff. So now that we're in COVID phase, it's basically all about trying to keep that program as stable as possible until we can get out the other side of this, figure out where we're at once this all comes to an end, and then how do we start moving back forward towards where we were with our enrollment, and then moving forward again with those goals to grow that program. So unfortunately, we've taken a couple steps back with this, but it's still our goals. We're just going to have to push them out further than we initially hoped for.
Karen Roney.
So one of the silver lining that you talked about is that you have also raised a lot of money during these difficult times. And it also sounds like it's a challenge getting that money out the door. I mean, in terms of direct financial assistance. So you know, some of the things that, so I guess I'm really looking for an update on, I think the last time that we spoke, which has been several weeks ago, you know, that you were, because of the high demand, that your appointment schedule for when people could come in and do an intake for assistance was out several weeks. So tell us how you have been able to address that.
Sure.
Shortened, have you ever brought more staff in? Have you been able to shorten the period of time between when someone asks for assistance and is able to get an appointment to determine eligibility?
Yep. So we have shortened that back up. At one point, we were in October looking towards the end of December before we could get households in for rent or utility assistance. Also during that time, we were down some staff. We had a little bit of turnover. And I thought it'd be really easy to find new staff and new employees during COVID, because we thought, you know, there would be some people out there who might have lost their jobs, but it was
that wasn't the case, was it?
It was a much more difficult than I expected. But in the end, again, the silver lining is we hired two wonderful staff who've come aboard. It took a couple weeks to get them up to speed, but they are now up to speed. They're 100% what we call in the books. So now they're working appointments, 4 appointments, 5 appointments every day. And we've also hired one additional resource specialist. So that case management team grew by 1 to help meet the need. And then I'm working on funding just to keep that in place through 2021. And then we'll readdress kind of once things calm down, whatever that may be. Do we still need that case manager, or can we let that go through attrition? So we've added another team member. The ones we've hired are now fully up to speed and attending appointments. And yeah, I mean, we've last time I looked, we were well over $800,000 in DFA out the door this year, and we're going to clear $1 million easy. And a lot of that is the support of the city of Longmont. We received CDBG funds just today, $200,000 for utilities. We've pushed, we're getting close to pushing half of that out already. And we've already started working on the rent funds, which is a different contract. So the team downstairs is working as fast as they can to help as many households as they possibly can, just to make sure, of course, they can't get evicted right now, but once that moratorium expires, if they're 2-3 months behind, they're in big trouble because they're not going to have the funds. So we're trying to keep them up to date with all their bills. So when that moratorium goes by, hopefully they're current, and then they can take it from there.
So can I ask a follow-up question? Do you have a cap on the amount of assistance that people can receive? So say like rent assistance, or I mean, how are you figuring all that out?
A lot of it depends on the funding source. So
right.
Like the CDBG funds, I think we did 3 months, or I can't remember, $5,000 I think is what it was. There's so many contracts right now, I can't keep track of them all. I trust my resource specialist team to do it. But some of our funding sources do have caps, and we have to obviously honor those caps. With the funds that we've been able to raise from the community and through grants and foundations, if there was no stipulations to those funds, we take everything on a case-by-case basis. We have helped some families up to 3 months, but we're only seeing about a 11 to 15% return rate. So of the households that are coming every month, only about 11 to 15% are returning from a previous month. So again, it's taking on a case-by-case basis. My understanding, talking to my team, is rarely are we saying no, we can't at this point, because we do have the resources. So we're trying to help multiple months where we can and where it seems to be appropriate.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, I've got a couple of just kind of application-specific questions, and maybe Elaine, this is more to I'm not sure. Just one, when I was going through the basic needs application under the program description, it was really a description of the diversity, equity, and inclusion work that you're doing. It didn't describe the basic needs program. So I don't know if that was intentional or if that was, if it was intentional, I guess my question was, how does that relate to your basic needs program? Any of that sounding familiar?
I'll let Elaine jump in first, and then I'll see if I can fill in any gaps there.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna pull up and see, and I can verify with Charity too if there was something that was put in the wrong place. But yeah, I mean, our basic needs is pretty much like it sounds and has grown over the years, but is always around homelessness prevention and food security. So our meals and our grocery program, our financial assistance really is, especially right now, almost entirely the rent and utility assistance. So what we call our homelessness prevention program, but
Okay.
that would include some minor medical needs. A lot of the things that we typically are doing in person, we can't right now, of course, our classes, our educational component. So again, the basic need structure is really always been the foundation, continues to be rent and housing, utilities, and food and personal care items primarily.
Okay, thank you. So I think what's important is if it was a mistake, just let us know. If there's something in there that we should be evaluating relative to the application, that would be helpful to know as well. And then just one other piece related, it appears to me that the logic model is from a prior year, at least the format is. It's not our current format, so I wanted first to make sure that the contents were still current. And then I find the new format a little easier to read because it's not quite as complicated. So if it's possible to get that in the new format, that would be helpful for me at least.
Sure, we'll do that. And I'll double check with Charity and make sure she's got that format. If not, would she get that from you, Alberto?
You're on mute, Alberto.
Yeah, that's weird. They downloaded it's in the application.
Okay.
It's in the guide. So I'm not sure where she got that other format. We haven't used that in a couple of years.
Okay, we'll get it corrected and get it into you.
Thank you. It just makes it a little bit easier for simple people like me who like one box. Thank you. And just in general, I'm curious, I know you've spoken to this a little bit. With COVID, of course, so much has changed. And Mark, you were talking about you're really not seeing a whole lot of recurring kind of clients right now in certain areas. And I apologize if you've already spoken to this, but have you seen a large uptick in new clients?
Yes, last time I looked, it was approximately 25 to 30% every month were new to the Hour Center. So we are certainly seeing a fairly significant uptick of households who've never had to access our services before access them.
Yeah.
And that's speaking on the DFA side. I haven't looked at the data for a while, but on the community market or the pantry side, I believe we were seeing 5 to 10 a week or a month of new families coming through there. So again, a fairly significant increase in new families coming to the Hour Center.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good news in terms of apparently people are aware. So outreach must be working. So that's great. Karen Phillips.
Yeah, I'm kind of new at this, sorry, but how are you able to provide permanent and supportive housing? Where do you get your housing from? How do you support that?
We do have one unit with the Lutheran Church on 3rd Avenue. that we do provide supportive housing through that church unit. And then everything else that we provide is with partner organizations through resource and referrals.
And they have houses then that people can go rent?
Yeah, so for instance, we may provide a warm handoff to the in-between and get into their program, or if it's an individual who's a victim of domestic violence, we have a really good partnership with SPAN, and we can make a warm handoff to that program. So.
And are you able to provide housing for everybody that needs it?
I mean, typically not, because most programs have a wait list. So the best we can do is get them connected with the programs that are providing the housing, and then provide the supports while they're waiting or going through that process. So, you know, a lot of it's just, you know, wait and see on the wait lists and what's available throughout the city.
I think just to clarify, you know, Karen, is that our center really isn't in the housing business, so they don't provide housing per se. So, but one of the roles that they have is that they try to keep people in housing. So, you know, so they, when they talk about direct financial assistance and rent assistance, so folks that are in their housing and that are struggling, so they really try to help keep people in their housing.
Okay, thank you.
If that helps with clarification.
Yep.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, any other questions from our board or staff? Deanna?
So I just had a follow-up question on the issue of rental and utility assistance and vouchers. So I know your application said that you had distributed 880 rent and utility vouchers in, like, I think the 6-month period sort of before the application was due during COVID. I'm just trying to understand, is that like how many more vouchers are you distributing during that sort of same time period in a non-COVID crazy pandemic year? And as an associated question, I know you said that you were hoping that people were staying caught up so that they don't hit, like, when the moratorium's lifted and things like are going to go crazy. I don't know if you have any assessment of how successful you have been in trying to get people to come in, or if you have a feel for whether it's really going to explode or not when the moratorium's lifted.
Sure. So we're at about 350 to 400% above what we normally do when it comes to direct financial assistance. Typically, and again, Elaine, correct me if I'm wrong, through a 12-month period, we're right around 1,000 vouchers for the year. And we just eclipsed that about 2 weeks ago, last time I looked at our records. So we're steaming well past the 12-month period already. Regarding, you know, how well we're going to be successful in regards to avoiding evictions when the moratorium's ever lifted, that's a little bit difficult to say because we're so packed right now at just trying to process and keep people up to date. It's been very difficult, if not impossible, to follow up with those households and just say, hey, how you doing? Do you need anything else? I mean, that's something we would normally do if our case managers weren't so packed with appointments. But they do make sure that families know that, you know, if you're still running into issues, please call us. We will get you back in again. You know, please feel free to access the Hot Meals program or the food program, you know, if that helps you, you know, save a little bit of money for your bills, etc. So we're putting the offer out there. Now, if someone is not coming back and there's a reason for it when they could use that support, right now we just don't have a good system or in position to do much of that follow-up. So the best we can do is just offer and say, we're here, please keep coming back if you need us. I wish we had a better system right now, but we don't, given the circumstances.
I mean, I recognize that's a difficult question, especially because you have adapted to a huge influx of need right now. I was just sort of curious if you had an idea of what it looked like. So thank you.
Sure, sure.
Thank you, Deanna. Any other questions? Yes, Karen Roney.
Are you taking donations again of clothes?
And I can play him.
So,
that's a personal
thing. So right now we're only accepting winter clothes. So jackets, scarves, hats, mittens, boots, in gently used or better condition. That's the need we're seeing from families right now. They've got kids who've grown from last year to this year. And, traditionally the Longmont Rotary had a coat drive. And we had a huge event here the first Saturday of December. Obviously that's not going to happen, but the Rotary Club did donate $3,000. So we ordered a lot of kids' clothes. And we did do a community food drive, and we accepted winter clothing at that food drive about 3 weeks ago on a Saturday. So we have a decent amount built up. And again, that's part of the resource specialist. Every time we have a contact, we ask questions if they have those needs. But accepting anything else at this time, we just don't have the space for it, because basically our food program has taken over almost the entire building, so we could socially distance, keep everyone safe. So our community closet, if you've ever been in our building, is completely full of rows of food boxes that have already been established, ready to go out the door.
Sorry. That's not the beeper yet. That's just
Okay, all right. Karen Phillips.
Yeah, do you also take food? I mean, if I have a box of food, can I drop it off at our center? Or how do
Yep, anytime during our business hours, 8 to 5 at our donation door, just ring the doorbell and the staff or volunteer would be happy to take any food. And we really need it right now. So we haven't seen the typical food drives that we normally would over the summer, and we're not seeing them this time of year. This is a big food drive time of year with the holidays. The community's still being great and bringing stuff in, but we're missing those big drives. So yes, please bring as much as you can. That'd be awesome.
No, thank you. I will.
Mark, just on that note, are you able to get product adequately from Community Food Share?
Yeah, they've been a tremendous supporter. That's where we get a lion's share. I know they've been bringing in more food and then pushing more food out to us.
Okay.
So they've been a great supporter. We run into things like, animal proteins. That's always a hard thing to keep stocked up. So that's one of our biggest challenges right now is animal proteins, peanut butter, those kind of things that you get, but just not at the same levels you do with, noodles or canned vegetables, that kind of thing. So
Starch and carbohydrates
yeah. But CFS has been a great partner. They've really stepped up for us.
Great. That's good to hear. Karen, would you mind giving us an update?
2 minutes and 20 seconds.
2 minutes and 20 seconds.
This is my job.
And you're good at it.
Deanne has a question.
So this is just a follow-up question on that food donation issue. So you were saying that you need more like protein issues coming in. I'm just like, if I wanted to bring food, better to bring things like peanut butters and stuff like that instead of necessarily noodles and canned vegetables.
Yep, and we do have a wish list or the items most needed on our website, so you can check there, and we're always trying to keep that updated with what we need in our stock.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Karen Roney.
And the other question that I had is, way back in the day when the Our Center was founded was really to unify how faith communities could come together and contribute and provide resources to the community. So do you still have strong faith community support? Have some of that, because some faith communities now are kind of providing direct services on their own too. So how would you say the vision in which the Our Center was created is still alive and well today, or how has it shifted, or has it?
So at least during my short window, and of course Elaine can add any longer context, this year especially, we've seen a very nice little bump in financial support from our faith-based community. They really are stepping up, which I know has got to be difficult for them, given all the challenges that they're facing. And also, I had a conference call, a virtual conference call with some faith-based leaders just talking about kind of what we're doing, what they're doing, how we can connect. And I also met with a couple of pastors to talk about, there's a group of pastors who really want to get together and again, kind of do a lay of the land and who's doing what and how can we make sure that we don't, or how, they may not duplicate our services and best support each other and pass referrals. We're kind of waiting for a good time with COVID to follow up with that conversation with the bigger group. So I think there's definitely a need and an interest in bringing that partnership further along again to where it was back in the 80s. So I think once COVID ends, I think there's going to be some really positive movement in our relationship with the faith-based community. But it's not that bad right now, so I don't want to make that look like it's not strong. It is, but it could be stronger, or will be stronger.
I appreciate that, and we have reached our 30-minute threshold.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mark and Elaine, for joining us. Appreciate it. Thank you for everything you do. You're a huge asset in the community, obviously.
Thank you guys for serving on this committee. We appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, looks like our
3.
guests are waiting. Anybody need to take a quick break, or should we let them in?
Where are we right now?
We are at time. We are like 4 minutes over.
Who are we going to be speaking
Mile
with?
High United Way. And
Mile
they're-
High United
Yeah,
Way.
so they're going to be talking about the PI program, the personal investment program, and the volunteer program.
Okay. Heave ho.
All
All
right.
right, I'll go ahead and let them in.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. And Rosemary and Gina, can you hear us okay?
Yes. Hi, how are you? It's good to
Doing
see
well,
you again.
thanks. And feel free to turn your cameras on if you have them.
Thank you. I'm recovering from COVID, so I am not turning my camera on today.
Okay, I hope you're doing well.
I am, thank you. It was a rough week, but I'm on the mend.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, thank you for joining us. Is it the 3 of you, or are you expecting any others?
This is it today.
This is it. That's wonderful. And this is enough. I didn't mean to suggest you did more.
We'll see.
All right, we'll go ahead and get going then. I'm Brian. I'm the chair of the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board. Welcome. You are familiar with the format. We will have 30 minutes in this case because there are 2 programs that we are discussing. And it's really a Q&A format, so the board and staff will have a number of questions and you'll have the opportunity to answer them. And then if there's time that's not been used, you're welcome to ask questions of us or tell us anything that you feel that we would still it would be good for us to know. So if you wouldn't mind starting with introductions, particularly for our new board members, that would be perfect. And why don't we start, I'm just going to call you out because otherwise there's this awkward space where you're wondering who should go. So why don't we start with Lisa, we'll go to Rosemary and then Gina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Kitchen, and I'm the Foundation Grants Senior Manager at Mile High United Way. So Rosemary and Gina are your experts, and I'm here to just support and obviously provide any follow-up that's needed. So thanks so much.
Great, thank you, Lisa. And Rosemary?
Yes, I'm Rosemary Thompson. I'm the program manager with the Personal Investment Enterprise Program at Mile High United Way.
Wonderful, thank you. And Gina?
Thanks, Ryan. Hi, I'm Gina Nacera. I'm the Vice President of Community Impact at Mile High United Way. I've been with the organization about 1.5 years now, and I joined when Mile High became Foothills merged with Mile High and began to support Boulder and Broomfield counties.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'd like to open it up now to the board members and staff for any opening questions. And go ahead, Caitlin.
Hi, thanks everybody for being here. One thing I noticed in the application is there's a 2021 shortfall of 1.3 million that the board has approved and mentioned strong fiscal management and financial reserves and balance sheet. I'd love if you could talk a little bit about what that looks like for 2021 and why there's such a, I guess, a belief that operating with that much of a loss is okay for this year and what that looks like going forward.
Lisa, do you want to address that question?
Sure, I'll try, and then Gina, if you want to pipe in if you think of anything. I think going into this fiscal year, there was just a recognition that our corporate giving would likely be lower this year. So, you know, our campaigns have always been our bread and butter at United Way, and we certainly have the same ambitious goals, but know that that companies are facing layoffs, they're facing all kinds of financial difficulties potentially in the next year that we're, you know, we can't even fully anticipate, but just I believe there was just caution on the executive level to think through, you know, what if these, you know, very big companies that contributed in the past don't come through? Let's assume that a certain percentage won't. And, you know, in that situation, what can we fall back on? And the organization has done really well with putting aside, I believe it's 2 reserve funds to draw upon, you know, in should they need it and should we face that scenario. So they kind of went forward with that with the board and got that approval.
Yeah, so it is a projected loss based on the fact that this is a very, very challenging year. And I think Lisa is right. It is mainly projected on the corporate side.
Thank you. Other questions? Karen, Roni, I just want to check in. Did we lose any board members? No? Okay.
No, probably had to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she had an appointment.
She had an appointment, so she had to.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so yes, Deanna, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about, for the volunteer program, if you've seen a drop off in volunteers that are interested and available and eligible to be helping out during COVID, if you've seen maybe actually the reverse, an increase in people that are interested in helping out, or how COVID has impacted that.
I think that's a great question, Deanna. And, you know, we have a very robust volunteerism component to what we do. And we have a volunteer team of 4. And I think they've done a really good job in pivoting from the very beginning of COVID. And I think we've had some really big events even during COVID. So we've had our National Volunteer Week, where we have volunteer projects that go on throughout the 7 counties. I think that was in April. So that was really soon after COVID started, and we were able to do many virtual volunteer projects. The same with our Day of Caring. I would just say that we had some virtual and some in-person volunteer projects with Day of Caring. The numbers probably aren't the same, right? We're not serving as many nonprofits as we would during a normal year, but we definitely are still having a very encouraging response, both to virtual and in person when those opportunities present themselves. One great example is like our back to school event for back backpack, our backpack drive, we held one of those. I think we had 3 of them in different locations. One was in Longmont at our center, and we were still able to have all of our in-person volunteers. We just spread them out so that we could socially distance. We still have the Denver cheerleaders there because we did that in partnership with the Broncos. So they're just very thoughtful about how they do it in a safe way. What could be virtual, what could be in person, and so far it's worked out really well. But yeah, I do think we just can't have as many, we can't serve as many as we normally would.
Gina, could you talk a little bit about the idea of the volunteer program? Who are the clients? Are they the volunteers, or are they the agencies that are utilizing volunteers?
I think they're both. I mean, because the volunteers get as much out of volunteerism and the work that they're doing in the community as the clients, as the nonprofits that we work with. It's definitely a mutual beneficial relationship. I know every chance that I get as a Mile High employee to volunteer, I'm going to volunteer. Because I love it. I love it. I love doing that more than, my day job. If I could get out there in the community and do something meaningful. So I was at those backpack events. I've been at all the Day of Caring events or the National Volunteer Week events. It is definitely a mutual beneficial relationship.
Mm-hmm. And so if I could ask a follow-up question related to that, on the logic model, the outcome, one of the outcomes for the volunteering is essentially the participation will hold steady from 2020. And have you thought about outcomes more related to items like, because this is conjecture, but when I listen to you speaking, Gina, I think about how volunteering in that way, the benefit to the volunteers is like maybe increased feelings of connection to the community, or feelings of increased value, or, these things that I think we kind of like know that we get as volunteers. Have you ever looked at outcomes like that are more directly related to the kind of dynamic that you're describing?
Lisa, do you want to address that specifically, that qualitative data around volunteerism?
And you're on mute, Lisa.
Sorry about that. We have our platform that we use, which is Volunteer United, and we're able to capture qualitative data on that. To your point, though, I think there could be more robust evaluation, and we could call upon our 3 experts in our evaluation and learning program to maybe help us think through how we could start to measure that a little bit more. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's controversial to say, Gina, during a hearing, but yeah, I think there is more that we could collect and try to measure in that area.
I think one thing that is, is really telling is that so many of our volunteers come back and volunteer time and time again. So the duplication of volunteers is significant. And that to me speaks volumes about that they're getting as much out of it as they're giving to the community. You're right, it's that community connectedness. So we can really rely on whether there are corporate volunteers or they're individuals in the community to come back each year. And whether they're volunteering at one of our signature events, like say what's upcoming is the Turkey Trot. Normally that every year is in Wash Park. We have 10,000 plus runners, tens of thousands of runners every year. And we have similar volunteers. Well, they're volunteering virtually this year and they're running virtually this year. So I would say that bodes very well for us that they are returning year after year to volunteer with us.
Yeah, as an evaluator, I like the idea of some of those pieces being tied in, making there's like an intuitive component that I think we often just kind of go to, like, of course, if people are volunteering, that's good. But I think as much as we can manifest that in a tangible way, it often makes it a little easier to understand. Okay, so that wasn't even a question. That was just me talking. I'll go back to questions. Caitlin?
Yeah, so a couple of the items in the logic model for the volunteer connection are around like calculating the value to Boulder County, for example, of those volunteer hours. That seems to be specifically related just to the number of hours and sort of the average value of those. Do you do anything with sort of the agency partners to assess like what volunteers actually accomplish and the value of that? So separate from actually just the amount of time, but do they accomplish some specific goal or outcome for those agencies?
Well, we know that they do, specifically the longest running volunteerism in Boulder County would be Day of Caring, right? We just completed the 26th annual Day of Caring, which we inherited from Foothills. And so there is value placed with those volunteer hours for each project that is completed, because these are real projects that nonprofits need completed. If volunteers weren't doing them, paid staff members, somebody else would need to complete those. And so I think we have been able to, our volunteer team, and I'm sorry we don't have a volunteer team member on this call, because they would be able to give you that sort of exact amount of dollars that that are translated from the work to the project. And I know that that is something that they do every year with each project for Day of Caring.
Great, thanks. Brian, is it okay if I ask another question?
Of course, yeah.
So the other program that you've applied for is for the personal investment enterprise, and I'm looking at that, and I'd like to understand a little bit more about like what assets folks are purchasing through that program. So I see that some of the outcomes are around asset purchases are made. What are those, and sort of why do we care about that?
Mm-hmm. Sure. We have 3 different aspects of the program for the Personal Investment Enterprise Program. So people can save for first-time home ownership, a new business development, or post-secondary education. So they enter the program with one of those 3 goals in mind. And at the end of the completion of their saving and their financial education, then they're either purchasing their first home, or they're purchasing items that they need to go to school, or they're purchasing items that they need for their business.
And is that all just funds that they've saved, or is there financial support for them as part of it?
Yes, so it's a matching program. We match at a 4-to-1 rate. So right now participants in the program save $1,000. And there's a matching component of $4,000, so they have $5,000 at the end of the program to put towards their goal.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Deanna, and then Karen.
And a follow-up question on that, on Caitlin's question. So under normal circumstances, is there sort of a timeline for completing the program, and have you had to make adjustments to that? I guess what I'm getting at is I'm hoping that people aren't losing their work and investment because maybe COVID has impacted their ability to save that $1,000. So have you had to adjust the program and the timeline and the goals based on current situation?
Yes, so normally people must save for at least 6 months, and the reason for that is at least 6 months, and the reason for that is to develop that savings habit. So they save between 6 and 30 months in the program, and that's intended really to help the most lowest income individual possible, and for that to fit their budget. So if they save right around $33 a month, then they can get through the program in a couple years and still pursue that goal, even though currently they might not think that that's even possible to own their own home. saving at that level. Someone saving at 6 months saves, right around $167, I think it is, a month, and they can really pursue that goal faster. At this point in time, we have had to make some adjustments and be a little bit more patient during this time. People have maybe more challenges going to the bank or wanting to go to the bank. They might want to set things up, directly from their bank account initially, rather than going into the bank and making that first deposit in person. So we had one person that we had to give a little bit more time in order to make that first deposit. So we're really trying to work with people in their situations. I think that some people have had to delay some of their goals because of challenges with COVID-19. Maybe they don't have access also to some of the education opportunities that they had in mind during this time. And so because of some things that haven't been offered, we've had to have some adjustments in that area as well.
Rosemary, I'm curious, are there any, have you seen funding sources that you wouldn't normally be looking at because of COVID-19, and perhaps grants that are available for, getting people back on their feet? And I can't tell you what that would be, but is anything like that coming up where you're thinking, oh, if we applied, that would be really help, if people, maybe it's an 8-to-1 match because of the situation or something, because of funding. Are you seeing anything like that?
You're asking if we're applying for new types of funding during this time frame?
Or if you're seeing the opportunity to do so.
Yes. We've seen a lot of the funds go to immediate, more crisis-based needs at this time. So not all of the funding available has really suited the program, since it's more of a long-term focused program. But we have applied for some fund through the collaborative. I think that we just submitted one request last week for loss of income during this time. So that's one way that we've approached that. I'm not aware of any other funds that we're considering at this time, but since we're hopefully moving more into recovery in the near future, maybe there will be more opportunities that become available.
Okay, thank you. Karen Roney?
So Rosemary, I'm wondering, because that 4-to-1 and that $5,000 has really been the target amount for many years now. So is that enough? I mean, so in just thinking in this day and age, how does $5,000 really make a difference in getting people to their goals of education or home ownership, given what we've seen in terms of the skyrocketing prices of being able to accomplish those things? So how have we adjusted the program to meet the increasing costs?
Right. In the past, it wasn't quite $5,000, and we had increased it up, and that was like the median at that time across the country between for the matching rate, so that people ended up with that $5,000. So, and that has been based on what the focus was in terms of the purchase. And we've always said at PI, the PI program isn't everything. It's just a portion of it, but costs do continue to increase. So we're encouraging people to pair PI with other sources, such as affordable housing or habitat program or other opportunities that are out there. But at this point in time, we haven't considered increasing that amount.
So has the demand for this service, how has that been impacted over time, and particularly with COVID? Are people signing up? Are they, so kind of what's?
Are you talking specifically about homeownership, or are you talking about the program?
In the entire pilot program.
We do continue to see interest in the program. We stated, I think, in the application between 30 and 40 individuals are continuing to express interest on a regular basis. So, and that's, you know, on a monthly basis. So we have tailored online survey so that people can take that and kind of gauge to see if they would be a good fit for the program and to attend an orientation before they commit to coming to an orientation. We've continued to see people taking that survey within and without of the area that we serve. So I'm seeing the continued interest in the program, and during this time we're doing things virtually so that people can continue to become informed about the program and how they would take steps to be applying during this time.
Thank you.
We have not seen many people drop out of the program during this time, and none from Longmont actually. So we're seeing people really still focused on their goals, wanting to purchase and focus on their asset goals at this time. And I'm really encouraged by that. We've offered, you know, the resources available if they're in need at this time, so that they have, you know, they learn about what's available in the community as well.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, any other questions from our board or staff? I don't see anybody jumping up and down. Karen Roney has another question.
Oh, no. So kind of back to the volunteer program, because this is not a service that we have funded. It hasn't really fit within our focus areas too well in the past. But so when we talk about, you know, I think it was around 1,000 Longmont residents that would be served through the volunteer program, if I'm remembering. So is that 1,000 volunteer placements, and you know, and how does that happen? Is it primarily through the events? You know, so help me understand what that 1,000 number means for the Longmont.
I will jump in, Karen, and then Lisa, please fill in anything that I'm forgetting here. I think the 1,000 would include, yes, Day of Caring, National Volunteer Week, where we would focus on, you know, very specific Longmont community organizations. It would include that backpack, the back to school event, backpack drive at our center, again in August of 2021. And then we would also do some sort of general days of service with Longmont companies who would be really interested in having a day of volunteerism in their company to support certain nonprofits that they'd like to work with and meet certain needs. So I think we had, I don't remember exactly how many we put in, but we do these general days of service with companies on a regular basis through our volunteer team.
Yeah, so just the more nitty-gritty answer in filling out the application, we just added up our volunteers that engage with us through all those different activities in order to get to the $1,000 number.
Karen Roney, would you mind giving us a time update?
Let me just check. We have 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay.
So I have another question. So, and this is probably for Gina. So, you know, since you know, some of us aren't really with nonprofit agencies. Well, Brian is, but a lot of us aren't. And so, you know, since Foothills has merged with Mile High United Way, if it it's hard to really understand the presence that Mile High United Way is really having in Longmont, and how might I and other Longmont community members really have a better understanding and can really observe the presence of Mile High United Way in Longmont and what you're doing?
Well, that's a great question, Karen. One of our main programming strategies is our United Neighborhoods, and we focus very much on under-resourced neighborhoods with our programming. And we have currently moved into Longmont this year with one of our programs, United for Families, which is focused on birth to 5 years old. And we are investing more than approximately $120,000 this year through our United for Families program there. We're working really closely with Wild Plum Center, which you know is the Head Start and Early Head Start Center in Longmont. And we're supporting an application that if it's approved by the federal government, will add about 24 new slots to Head Start, and well, specifically to Early Head Start at the Wild Plum Center. So that's one of our investments this year. We're also looking at potentially a mobile preschool. Just in the beginning conversations with Wild Plum Center, they're really interested in purchasing a school bus from the feds to have a drop-in early child care center during the school year in Longmont, and then also more consistent summer programming on that bus. So we're working closely with them on that as well. And then we're also working with the TLC Learning Center to increase slots there. They're looking to potentially purchase an adjacent center, and we would like to help them with that and potentially increase slots at TLC Center. I have sat on the Longmont Early Childhood Coalition now for a year and a half. So working really closely with all the community members and stakeholders that are working really hard to grow access for early childcare. So that is one thing that we're doing in Longmont. We're really excited next year to go into our United for Schools program, and we've been working with the St. Vrain Valley School District to identify a school. It'll be a Title I school, probably east of Main Street, where we could have our United for Schools program really work with that school in providing quality out of school time, parent-teacher leadership teams to get parents really involved in the school, addressing school engagement, school participation, and chronic absenteeism in that school. So that will come in the next fiscal year. Those are just two examples. One other example that we will be doing in Longmont next fiscal year is our United for Business, which we will work with small business owners who have been in existence for 3 years or longer, who may need some additional sort of technical assistance in growing their business or even just stabilizing their business. So again, we will work within that very specific neighborhood. Again, probably east of Main Street.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Gina.
1 minute.
1 minute. Is there a final question for our guests? If not, is there a final statement from our guests? that 60-second statement that you've always been wanting to give? This is the chance.
I would just like to say thank you so much for your continued support. We really appreciate being able to serve the Longmont community, and we know that what you provide to the PI program has been very important in order to serve our Longmont residents. And so far this year, we've had 9 residents make purchases, 6 homes, 2 businesses, and 1 education participant has benefited. So I would just like to say thank you.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Thank you, Rosemary. Well, likewise, thank you for everything you do in the community, and it truly takes a village, and you're a big part of that. So we're grateful and happy to partner with you. And
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Were you going to tell me to move along?
No, I'm just saying the minute did happen. So the
The
buzzer
minute
went
it
off.
happens. So enjoy the rest of your day. You can hit the leave button to extricate yourselves from this meeting, and we hope that you have a great day.
And I hope
Thank
you
you
get
all.
better.
Take care.
I'm
Thanks.
sorry that, you just keep getting better.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right, our final group is waiting, and this is Via. Okay.
Bring it.
Bring them in.
I'm just going to let you all know I've got to run. I apologize that I can't stay for the last one, but thank you all for all of the work you're doing.
Thanks, Caitlin. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Hi, Lisa's.
We're a package deal.
Well, it's going to make it easy to ask a question. I make it harder to answer it. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm Brian, the chair of the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board, and we're thrilled you can be here. We do have 30 minutes for a Q&A, so the board and staff will ask questions, give you time to answer them, and then if there's any time left over that we haven't used, you're welcome to ask questions of us or give us any information that maybe we missed. And we do have new board members, so if you could start with introductions, that would be really helpful.
I'm Lisa Curtis, and I'm the Director of Development and Community Outreach.
I'm Lisa Bitzer. I'm the Director of Operations here at VIA.
Great, thank you. Okay, do we have any opening questions from our board or staff? Deanna?
So I just had a question about your board makeup. So we asked some questions about race and ethnic background in terms of board membership, and it looks like your board is basically all Caucasian. It occurs to me also, as we've gone through these interviews today, that this chart doesn't necessarily give the opportunity for explaining maybe other areas of diversity on the board in terms of maybe individuals with disabilities, et cetera. So I thought maybe I could ask you sort of a two-part question in terms of attempts to diversify the board from a racial and ethnic standpoint, and whether there are any other components of diversity on your board that maybe our application missed asking.
I'll start with that. One thing, we have two new board members who are Hispanic, who will be joining us in the 2021 year. We're also in the process of recruiting new members as well. And our recruiting process is always ongoing, but we are talking with one of the folks that we're trying to recruit at this time. It's not, I can't disclose a name, but is African American, and so that would diversify our board more. And the kind of the third thing I wanted to, we have at the request of CDOT and Dr. Cog, we expanded our services into Denver metro region during COVID because we were still up and running, and the agency that was performing that service was unable to keep doing it. That probably is going to mean that we'll also be recruiting from the Denver metro region as well. So we're always looking, diversity is always a concern. And I did, one point I forgot to mention, Debbie Noel is on our board, and she's paraplegic and in a wheelchair, and that gives us some diversity. She's been on for a while in terms of representing people with disabilities. And she's a wonderful board member. You may be aware of her activities in the community as well. So it's, we're always recruiting for the board and always seeking diversity. Our board is probably not as diverse as our workforce is. our workforce tends to be much more diverse than the board, but we're always trying to, as we see professionals that might, and then other individuals who might have something to bring to the board, we're always looking to also diversify it as well.
Great. Thank you. Another question. Karen Roney?
So can I piggyback on that? So you did indicate in your application that there was a, that you all have created a diversity, equity, and inclusion staff committee, but it didn't look like you shared a lot of information about its purpose and its tasks and some of the things that it's working on. So can you talk a little bit about the DEI staff committee?
I'm not a member of that committee, but it's actually being led by our CEO, Frank Bruno. And he's working with the director of human services and also a member of our training team on that. And that was created this year. And sorry, I can't really speak to what they've been doing since COVID started. Lisa, do you have some?
Yeah, I know that they've had some meetings, but I don't know where they're at with their process at this point.
So it might be helpful if you can follow up with Frank or some of the other folks that are leading that effort and maybe send Alberto just a summary of the work that particular staff committee is focusing on. I think that'd be helpful.
I'll do that. I'm making a note right now. Thanks.
Sorry, go ahead, Karen Phillips.
Yeah, I was just wondering, are your trips taken like between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday, or do you do weekends and nights?
We provide service right now Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 or 8 to 4:30. We were doing some Sunday service delivering food for the Boulder County Farmers Market to people in Boulder County, a lot of them in Longmont, and Boulder, Lafayette, Louisville, Dacono, Firestone, Frederick. But they have switched that day to Mondays now. So no weekend service at this time, and not really a big need for it from what we've been, based on phone calls and things that we monitor. A lot of people just aren't going out quite like they used to.
Are your the volunteers, are they all, your drivers, are they all volunteers?
No, ma'am. Some are paid drivers. We do have volunteers. I have about 24 of them. And of course, since COVID and due to social distancing, it's a little harder for volunteers to move people. But I do have about 7 or 8 of them that have volunteered to take food to people. So they're doing anywhere from 20 to 35 deliveries, each Monday. And then we just finished up doing Thursdays as well, where they're taking food to people who otherwise either could have possibly been tested positive for COVID, or that are families that are in need of fresh produce and good food.
And
but the rest are paid drivers.
What are individual travel plans?
An individual travel plan is when someone calls up and they call VIA and they want to find out about our service or looking for information for transportation to and from point A to point B. We are able to give them an individualized travel plan. We realize VIA may not be the only choice for someone based on their needs and where they need to go. And so we can go ahead and we have forms that we can put what works for them based on what their need is, where they're looking to go, where they want to go. And it gives them all the information of who to call, the phone number, the cost, if there's any associated with that service. And then on top of giving them a new rider brochure and things like that, we put that in with the plan, in with the brochure as well, so that they can have it for future reference.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alberto, did you raise your hand?
Yeah. So Lisa, So I was looking at your audit, and I know that in the last 2 years, there's been, and you improved in 2019, which is great, but there was a larger loss in 2018 than there was in 2019. And I'm just wondering, with 2020, the way it's going, what are some of the strategic goals and objectives that you have around, covering those losses and ensuring the sustainability? I mean, it's great that you've increased your service area, so that might help as well. But I'm just wondering what other plans are in place or being discussed.
That's a great question. One of the things strategically that has changed at VIA is that in the past, we operated our paratransit services at with an intentional deficit that we covered with earned income contracts. We have a CFO now. We don't do that. We're limited by the funds that we have. So we no longer intentionally operate at a deficit, but we do continue to use earned income from operating contracts to apply to the available resources to operate our paratransit service. And I guess that may be I may not have explained the distinction between those two approaches very well, but one of them, by only providing the trips we have funds for, we're not in danger of not being able to subsequently raise the funds to cover that gap. So we're always in a more stable situation that way. But to further answer your question, the first thing we're doing right now, which sounds a little bit unusual because everything's been contracting during COVID, but we're actually looking to expand what we do as a nonprofit community transit agency. And that means, we consider that our mission really touches everyone in the community. So for example, if we're providing public transit under contracts with local governments, that helps support the paratransit costs that we have. And but we also when we provide public transit, it's accessible, it's equitable, it's affordable, and our long-term goal is for all of it to be environmentally sustainable. So we're in the midst right now of a strategic planning process with our board of directors and with an outside consulting firm. And so we're trying to put the details to that plan of expanding as a community transit agency and being both financially sustainable and environmentally sustainable, and what specifically would we do to expand those operations. So it's a work in process, but I would say that right now we've been operating throughout COVID, and we're pretty stable financially.
Deanna?
So that dovetails into a question that I had about demand for services during COVID, because I could envision on one hand that maybe obviously fewer people are going out and needing less trips, but on the other hand, maybe people are looking for less, like not so crowded, like being on a regular bus or something like that. So are you finding that those two concerns are sort of competing and weighing out, and you're maintaining the level of services, or are you having more or less, or what?
Yeah, so really good question. We have to have social distancing on our buses. So of course, we can't fill a bus like we used to. We could pick up 3 or 4 people, 5, and head a certain direction. And now we're unable to do that. Most of our buses, unless they're the real big ones that we use, can probably hold 2, maybe 3 people with proper distancing. The need for getting out has definitely gone down due to COVID. People are worried and they're concerned, especially the population that we deal with, which is age 60 plus and or have a disability. And so we've really had to adapt on how can we be there for the community. And one of the ways we've done that is by delivering food. Never thought we would be in the food delivery business, but we are now. And so the Boulder County Farmers Market reached out to us. Boulder County Health Department in the city of Longmont reached out to us and said, we have the opportunity to have all this food, but we don't have a way to get it to people, and they couldn't come to them. And what could we do? And so VIA, right from the get-go, stepped up to the plate and went ahead and said, what do you need and how much of it do you need? We'll be able to help you. And so we've been delivering food for them, I want to say probably since April, when they realized, April and May, when they started to open everything up and realized this huge demand. On Mondays, we do approximately 175 deliveries of produce and food to area residents in Boulder County, most of them in Longmont. The Boulder County Health Department during the summer, in fact, it just ended last week, did a food drive with Olin Farms in Longmont. And we got fresh produce and we took it to 68 different families, very, very low income, pregnant women, things like that, that just were too afraid to get out or had small children but need nutrition. So we've done that, and we've done quite a bit with community food share. We had a gentleman that had contacted us probably right at the beginning of COVID that was in a hotel. He was a veteran. And he was hungry and he needed food. And so someone had told him to contact us. He called. We were able to not only get him in the system, but go to community food share and pick up 2 boxes of food and bring it to him so he could eat. So these are the things we're doing it on the fly, same day, prescription deliveries. We can go and pick up your prescription and bring it to you. And we've done all this while waiving our fares so that we can help the community in the best way possible.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that, Brian?
Of course.
So it sounds like you're doing a lot of work with the farmers markets and with local farms. Is there sort of a plan for what happens, farmers markets shut down, right? So what the plan is going into the fall and the winter for food delivery, or have there been any explorations on that?
Yes, absolutely. And the farmers market is not going to be down. So because of times of COVID and the craziness that's gone on in this world, they have purchased a warehouse in Longmont, big coolers and freezers, and working with local farmers who normally wouldn't be producing any produce this time of year, now are going to, because they realize the need just doesn't stop because wintertime has come. And so there will continue to be these needs, and VIA is going to continue doing them for the population, so that they're not going away. Olin's Farm, of course, closed, but the farmers market's working with all the local farmers, and this will continue completely through the winter and into all of 2021. As well as other places like the community food share and places like that. The need is huge, and that's where we have to be there. We have to be there for the community, and especially as COVID numbers are increasing, makes people even more nervous, and so we need to make sure that they're taken care of the best way that we possibly can, and that's by transporting whatever they need.
And we got a smallish grant to continue delivering that winter produce. The other thing, Lisa, maybe you would talk about how our plans for extending the food delivery program.
I'm sorry, what was that, Lisa?
Our plans for delivering food even after COVID.
Oh yeah. I don't think that this is going to be something that will go away. I think that after COVID is said and done, I think Granted, probably not at the demand as it is currently right now, but people are still, especially the vulnerable population, they're still going to need their food delivered, their milk, their eggs, their things like that. Whether we go, to Walmart, King Super, Safeway, or a farmer's market or community food share, EFA. These are all places that this will be what BIA continues to do going forward, because I personally just don't think it's going to go away. I think there'll always be a need to be able to provide that service.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Karen, did you have a question? I saw you I'm interpreting your facial expressions now. This is what it's come to. And I'm not
sorry. So really my question was about just clarification. So in the amount of funding that you're asking from the City of Longmont Human Services for the paratransit is 100,000. I saw 100, I saw 30, I saw 148, kind of in different areas of the application. So I just wanted to clarify the amount that you're asking for from this advisory board for the paratransit program.
Yeah, it's, I think we requested funding at the same level as last year. That,
which is 30.
Yeah, Zoe DeVito actually wrote the application. I wrote some of it. She worked on the budget with Bill, and my understanding is that it was at the 30,000 rate. Is the 100,000 possible?
That's not what's in the program budget, Lisa. When program budget, what you're asking for is 160, which I'm assuming is from City Transportation, and then the HHS you're asking for 18,568.
That's right. So the transportation budget and separately from the HS budget.
Right, but I haven't looked at the mobility options one yet.
So if we have some questions, we will we'll follow. Because like I said, I was writing down. I thought I have 3 different amounts here. I need to figure out. So I think for the advisory board is that VIA does receive funding from another source within the City of Longmont. So in our transportation budget, they receive an amount of dollars. So like in 2021, that'll be 150,000. So the lion's share of the support that VA receives from the City of Longmont is through our transportation budget and not through our Human Service Agency set aside funding. So
thank you.
I didn't do the math, but that's where the 30 comes from. Is you add what they're asking from the mobility for all, or the mobility options, and the via transit, it equals 30.
Right.
Okay.
Which is
last. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, the information and referral services, that what we call mobility options.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Karen, do we have time for one more question?
Yes. We have 8 minutes left.
Oh, geez.
So.
Time for like 10 more questions.
or VIA can ask us questions.
Well, true. Okay. So, Lisa Curtis, I was interested in, you were talking about the strategy, and well, this is really for both of you, I suppose, but the $45 per trip, which the application indicates that that's pretty much industry standard. So as you look at like contracts, so when I listen to some of what you're saying, it occurs to me that there are opportunities for efficiencies, and efficiencies lower costs, but they also typically increase like delivery time, or getting somebody to some place, or it's typically a decrease in convenience. Do you have a sense of how you balance that?
Yeah, I love that question. So we've been working on kind of looking at the future, and with operations, and Lisa's been a big part of this as well. There are some very interesting advances in technology that we think could help us increase efficiencies. And so for some time, we've been looking at things that look at algorithms with routing software and shared rides. And, the most obvious way to cut down, we look at that $45 per trip number and we think about how to reduce it. And there are lots of things that you can do physically in operations to do it. But we think probably the biggest saver is going to come from technology. And one of the things that happened this year that took us completely by surprise and will probably be a game changer is that the routing software that we use from a company called RouteMatch that company RouteMatch was purchased by Uber 2 months ago. And so we foresee that this is going to create a wonderful synergy between their on-demand product, their infrastructure that they have throughout the world, and the expertise of RouteMatch in the specialized transit, paratransit world. And we're hoping that may be, we're continuing to look for ways that we can find efficiencies, but we're also kind of waiting to see how that particular event plays out in our industry. And hoping, one of the things that could happen is blending more of our passengers, our paratransit passengers, maybe with on-demand transit options so that they're not segregated so much, and that the more people we can get to share a ride efficiently, commuters, students, older adults, the more that cost comes down.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're really looking at in the future. Lisa, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think where RouteMatch is concerned, they're very good in the paratransit world, the specialized trip, the door-through-door trip. But then you take Uber, who already has a great on-demand and has had it for years. You combine the two, and you can have this wonderful paratransit with the on-demand, and the sky is the limit. And so we're working right now with the city of Firestone, or the town of Firestone, on the on-demand platform. Hope to have it up and running by possibly the end of December, if not by the beginning of January 2021, and see what that will look like. And of course, a lot of people in that area, where do they want to go? They want to come into Longmont, because that's where everything's at, the hospitals, the doctors, the Walmarts, all that. So very interesting to see what kind of efficiency that will give us, and be able to really play with it a little bit and see what we get for being more efficient and how we can control it.
Yeah, terrific. Great, thank you.
So we have 3 minutes left, Brian. So,
Well,
any other questions?
Unless anybody else has a question,
Lisa can give us the last pitch.
we can open it up to the Lisas to.
We do card tricks.
Oh, well, let's see some.
Oops, I forgot to bring my cards. The two Lisas meet with the two AJs in Firestone and Dacono. The city managers there are both, in those two places, are named AJ, so it's,
interesting.
Two names.
Yeah.
So,
well, I would.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say I think the work you've been doing in the food delivery has really been remarkable and incredibly helpful. And I'm really impressed with the level of innovation that VIA continues to pursue. So you know, it's a good agency. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to do one last shout out. Lisa Bitzer and her paratransit team of drivers and buses helped evacuate folks from Estes Park when the
Wow.
troublesome fire got very close there.
And in Lyons, we worked with the Boulder OEM and moved people out of Lyons as well and brought them into Boulder when Lyons was pretty close to being in a dangerous situation. So that was a first for me. But we did a great job and worked really well with them, and we got a lot of people to safety. So that was wonderful.
That's great. Congratulations on such a success in that area. I'm sure that was stressful.
Very stressful. It was about a week of no sleep.
Awesome.
I guess,
all right. Well,
I guess I have a question. How are you all faring with COVID? And, you know, what is the city of Longmont like? What are your struggles? What are you know, how are you all doing in these very difficult times?
Karen or Alberto? Karen's on mute.
So, you know, I think we had an opportunity to meet with Lisa and Lisa earlier today for some other conversation. And so I think, you know, the city government as a whole has fared pretty well revenue-wise. I think we chatted a little bit about that. But you know, there are some services. So you're probably pretty familiar with you know, the Longmont Senior Center and the work that we're doing there. And we do not know when people will ever want to come back to the Longmont Senior Center. It is heartbreaking. So like for Michelle, who has built her whole career, you know, she's been with the city 40 years and has invested so much of her passion in building up the Longmont Senior Center to what it is pre-COVID. And you know, folks aren't able to come back. Folks aren't necessarily, they love the service, but they just obviously the folks that they are serving are in that high risk category. Yep. And so there are things like that. There are our golf funds and our golf courses have had a banner year. They took in more revenue this year than ever because of COVID. Because people were golfing in their city. They didn't, you know, venture out. And it was one of the few things that folks could do, could come together in a small group, maintain some distance, unmask during golf, and it provided some sense of normalcy, if you will. Right. And so we have some services that are, you know, we don't know when we're coming back. You have others that have had a banner year, and it's just kind of all over the, you know, all over the place. But.
Well, thank you for all the work you do. It's hard. It's whoever thought we'd be dealing with a pandemic and of this magnitude. And yeah, it's difficult. But like you said, some places are thriving and some places are wondering what the future holds.
Right. Exactly.
And whatever VIA can do to help, please think of us and, you know, give me a phone call, Lisa, Frank, and we'd be more than happy to try to help out.
Okay, will do. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, folks, we are back on Wednesday.
And then I think we're off until
December 2nd. So we have we have Wednesday evening starting at 6, and then our final hearings are on Wednesday, December 2nd.
All right.
Oh. All right.
Well, thank you, everybody. Great questions, great insights,
Thank
great
you.
organization.
Yeah.
Karen, do you want to stay on for a second?
I will.
Okay. Bye, guys. Have a good
Bye.
night.
See ya.
Bye.
So just really quickly, we got 9 applicants so far. It closes tonight, so we'll see.
I'm going to stop recording, I think.
Okay.